The Russo-Japanese War, 1904 to 1905, was a pivotal conflict that reshaped the balance of power in East Asia and had significant consequences for global geopolitics. The war ended in a victory for Japan, which marked the first time in modern history that an Asian power had defeated a European empire. However, the aftermath of the war left both Russia and Japan facing complex political and territorial issues. In the midst of this tense situation, the United States, under the leadership of President Theodore Roosevelt, played a crucial role in mediating peace between the two nations and resolving their disputes. 1. Background to the conflict. The Russo-Japanese War was fought primarily over control of Korea and Manchuria. Both Russia and Japan sought to expand their influence in these strategically important regions. After a prolonged military conflict, Japan emerged victorious, forcing Russia to accept a peace settlement. Despite the victory, Japan found itself with territorial gains that needed formal recognition, while Russia had to come to terms with the loss of influence in East Asia. While Japan had emerged as the dominant power in the region, the peace settlement was essential to prevent further conflict and stabilize the situation. With Russia's internal instability and Japan's growing ambitions, the tension between the two powers could have led to further escalation. To avoid such an outcome, President Roosevelt saw an opportunity for the United States to step in as a mediator and facilitate a resolution that would benefit both nations and maintain peace in the region. 2. U.S. role in the peace process. President Theodore Roosevelt, who had long championed American influence in global affairs, saw the Russo-Japanese conflict as an opportunity for the U.S. to assert itself as a diplomatic power. Roosevelt was deeply concerned about the potential for continued conflict in East Asia, which could destabilize the region and disrupt American interests. Mediation initiative. After the war, Roosevelt proposed that both Russia and Japan engage in peace negotiations to avoid further bloodshed. Roosevelt's diplomatic efforts were driven by the desire to preserve stability in East Asia and prevent Russia and Japan from escalating the conflict. The U.S. played a key role in bringing both sides to the negotiating table. The Treaty of Portsmouth. Roosevelt's mediation efforts culminated in the Treaty of Portsmouth, signed in September 1905. The treaty officially ended the Russo-Japanese War and delineated the spheres of influence in Manchuria and Korea, recognizing Japan's dominance in the region. The treaty also addressed key issues such as the future of Port Arthur and Dalian, both of which were contested territories, and established a framework for ongoing diplomatic relations between the two countries. Roosevelt's Nobel Peace Prize. Roosevelt's successful mediation of the Russo-Japanese War earned him the 1906 Nobel Peace Prize. His ability to broker a peace agreement between two great powers demonstrated the United States' growing diplomatic clout and positioned Roosevelt as a leading figure in international peacekeeping efforts. 3. U.S. motivation for mediating the conflict. The United States' involvement in mediating peace between Russia and Japan was driven by a combination of strategic, economic, and diplomatic considerations. Maintaining stability in East Asia. The U.S. was deeply invested in maintaining peace and stability in East Asia, particularly due to its growing economic interests in the region. The U.S. had recently acquired territories like the Philippines and Hawaii, and a prolonged war in East Asia could disrupt American trade routes and investments. Mediating the conflict was seen as a way to protect these interests. Balancing power in the Pacific. Roosevelt recognized that both Japan and Russia were significant players in East Asia, and the U.S. sought to prevent either power from becoming too dominant. By helping to mediate the peace, the U.S. aimed to maintain a balance of power in the Pacific, ensuring that neither Russia nor Japan would upset the status quo to the detriment of American interests. Promoting American diplomacy. Roosevelt was a strong advocate for using diplomacy and peaceful negotiations to resolve conflicts. The Russo-Japanese War presented an opportunity for the U.S. to demonstrate its diplomatic leadership and establish itself as an arbiter of international disputes. The success of the Treaty of Portsmouth was seen as a triumph for Roosevelt's vision of a more active, peace-promoting role for the United States on the world stage. 4. Consequences of U.S. mediation. The U.S. mediation in the Russo-Japanese War had several important consequences, both for the nations involved and for global geopolitics. Strengthening U.S.-Japan relations. The Treaty of Portsmouth marked a turning point in U.S.-Japan relations. Japan, grateful for the U.S. mediation, saw the United States as a key diplomatic ally. This set the stage for a period of cooperation between the two countries, even as Japan's imperial ambitions continued to grow in East Asia. Decline of Russian influence in Asia. The outcome of the war, formalized in the Treaty of Portsmouth, marked the end of Russia's expansionist ambitions in East Asia. While Russia maintained control over parts of Manchuria, it was forced to recognize Japan's dominance in the region. This shift in power diminished Russia's influence in Asia and marked the beginning of Japan's rise as the dominant force in East Asia. Growing U.S. global influence. The successful mediation of the Russo-Japanese War showcased the United States as a rising global power with the ability to shape international diplomacy. Roosevelt's actions solidified the U.S.'s role as a peacekeeper and diplomatic leader, positioning it as a key player in future international conflicts. 5. Conclusion. The U.S. role in mediating the Russo-Japanese War was a significant moment in early 20th century diplomacy. President Theodore Roosevelt's leadership in facilitating the Treaty of Portsmouth demonstrated the United States' growing influence in global affairs and its commitment to peace and stability in East Asia. By successfully mediating between two great powers, the U.S. not only helped avert further conflict but also positioned itself as a key player in shaping the future of international relations. The aftermath of the Russo-Japanese War and the U.S.'s involvement in the peace process marked the beginning of a new era in global diplomacy, with the United States playing an increasingly important role in maintaining international peace.